Sullivan was on Monday Night Rugby last night. Here is how he sees Ireland's Six Nations opener against England going. Have a look.
The starting point for me is the selection. If you pick the best 15 players of the two teams, I think England might get 2 on our team. They might get 2. They get probably, you could argue Billy Vunipola and you could argue Mario Itoje. But I don't see, like, you could argue, if you were playing Farrell at 10, but that means leaving out Sexton. I wouldn't buy that. So really, we are a better team than them. They get very few players in our team. For that reason, Eddie's hands are tied with his back row. He doesn't have an open side. Sam Underhill was his get out of jail card on the open side. He's gone. So I think his centre partnership, again, he wants Farrell on the field, but he's used Farrell at 12 more than 10, even though Farrell is his best 10. But he doesn't have an outside centre. Then he bumps Tuolangi or Ben Teo to outside centre. So I think he might just go, like, if he's physically, he might go with Farrell, Tuolangi and Teo in the middle of the field and just go like bats out of hell physically in attack and defence. I don't think he can beat us playing rugby. I think we're a better rugby team. Okay. And then the pack he has has got physicality written all over it. So I would think it's going to be a hugely physical game. And for that reason, I think he'll go route one rugby and try and basically beat us up. And it's possible, but I don't believe they have the horse. I think we can match them at that as well. So I think Eddie Jones has a lot of headaches coming into Dublin.
Yeah, so that's one way of going about beating Ireland from Eddie O'Sullivan. Alan Quinlan's here. Maybe we're setting ourselves up for a fall here, talk ourselves into England only have one way of beating us, but it feels that way at the moment, that they're going to have to batter us or they're not going to beat us.
Yeah, I think that Eddie Jones has spoken about the aerial battle and the battle at the breakdown, and that's going to be key, and it's a key in most games, set piece and what you do with the ball when you have it then. But if he picks Tuolangi, and like Eddie's saying, Tuolangi and Theo and Farrell, that's a very physical kind of 10, 12, 13, so that'll be an area that they will try and target. And I think, look, if I was Eddie Jones in England, I would try and, you've got to ruffle Ireland up a little bit to have any chance of beating them, because they're a very good side and they're very organised and resilient side and abrasive. So get in amongst them, rattle them a bit, and you can do that physically. And Ireland, I wouldn't say they physically dominate teams, but they physically impose themselves and they wear teams down and they back their fitness and their continuity, the way they can hold on to the ball and they can. So it'll be no surprise to see England. And traditionally England, I think sometimes they've criticised, and John Mitchell is talking about Ireland boring teams.
They're going shy, John Mitchell, that's what I say.
Yeah, come on. England have always traditionally.
What are you talking about? Yeah, exactly.
Out-muscle people, and you look, they won the World Cup final in '91. Eddie Jones was coaching, and his Australian side were criticising England and for being up the jumper team, and because they were so big and powerful, and our Australia outfoxed them with kind of more open rugby and stuff. So it depends. It's horses for courses, who you have available to you. With the Vunipolas back, they'll be very direct. They'll try and get them off around the fringes of the breakdown, or around the fringes of the ruck, and making a lot of carries.
England won a World Cup playing 10-man rugby.
Yeah, they did. And
they reached another final playing 9-man rugby.
This is about winning. I think they're trying to go at Ireland a little bit to go away from what they know well.
Well, wasn't it the worst goaling of all time? Like, John Mitchell, from nowhere, like most Irish fans probably just now aware of the fact that he got the gig last September, that his predecessor was somebody who kind of clearly had a thought pattern.
Paul Gustard, was a really good...
The Wolfpack was a thing that, I understood exactly what they were trying to do. It sounded a bit weird, but okay, fair enough, it was a thing. With Mitchell, it's like, really? You're going to come and...
It was a very risky appointment, not on ability, but on personality. Because if you're coming off a bad year that they had under Eddie Jones, a little bit of player unrest, a little bit of talk of overtraining, too much contact in training. That was well documented last year. Even the week of that game in Twickenham when Ireland won the Grand Slam, they overtrained and they were doing a lot of contact, and players were giving out about that. Not publicly, but that stuff gets out. And then you appoint someone like John Mitchell, who's a colourful past, if you like, with how he deals with players, how he talks to people, management. There was player unrest in 2008 in the Western Force in Australia, where he got suspended and there was an inquiry. Players didn't want to play for him. He was abusing people. It was alleged he was abusing people, and that story got out. But there was a player revolt. It was the same in the Lions in 2012. One particular player tweeted recently last year saying that he was up for renew with the Blue Bulls, and South African Rugby Union were part of that process, and he was pleading publicly that they don't renew it because it was the worst decision ever to allow him to come into South Africa. He played under him in the Lions in 2012 when the players revolted. They wanted him out, and they got him out. And the story was that it was abusing players, staff, people in
This is verbal, obviously, yeah.
Verbal abuse. And look, I can understand in a sense that he's a bit of an old school approach, he was a hard player when he played. And
that's what Eddie Jones is too, though, right?
He's had 16 jobs, 16 kind of coaching positions.
Why did England appoint him?
There's obviously a connection. I think Jones and himself worked a little bit in South Africa when Eddie Jones went there with the Sharks. And Mitchell brought him in there, so they obviously have some sort of a connection, because he wasn't someone that was just pushed into the job by the England Rugby Union. And reportedly, they paid $200,000 to the Blue Bulls in South Africa to get him. It's mind-boggling stuff. I read a piece that Stuart Barnes did a few months ago when he was appointed, and I thought it was bang on, you know what I mean? You're spending not alone his salary, but you're going getting someone who... He may work really well for him and may suit Eddie Jones' style and mentality, but I don't know, it's a bit rich for him coming out talking about boring rugby when he was one of the people who he was the main person who finished Christian Cullen's career in New Zealand, where he dropped him off the All Black squad for being a star. And that was his own words, for being a star. So he limped out of the World Cup in 2003. So it's not it sounds like I'm racking up all this stuff to go against him, but...
It's context.
Yeah, to be fair to him, is it tongue-in-cheek? He adds a little bit of, well, look, Ireland are a very good side, and they're a great side, and they're resilient, and they're very well coached, but that's quite insulting to come out and say that they're going to board a SHIT.
Because that shit, we're on the internet, it's fine.
Pardon?
They're boring the shit out of us, yeah.
Okay. And look, maybe it's just part of the mind games. If you go back to what Eddie Jones came out with 3 years ago now, it's about the kicking game, that he was thinking of getting an Australian rugby, an Aussie rules team in to train against him because Ireland kicked so much, when statistically it was proven that England actually kicked more in that Six Nations than Ireland. So he has to get his stats right. Didn't get them right then. Then he spoke about Johnny Sexton's welfare and his parents should be concerned. Last year he called us the scummy Irish, which I thought was good fun now, to be fair. And it was it was a lunch, it was a bit of crack that was supposed to be behind the scenes.
So much.
2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, he's talking about Johnny Sexton have a direct line to the referees. They're doing a lot of talking, and it's kind of racking up. I don't think Joe Schmidt will pay huge attention to it. It won't affect his thinking.
See, I would have agreed with you, right? But then I was making the example earlier on of the New Orleans Saints taking something that one of the LA Rams guys had played and then putting it in the stadium, and every time the ball was out of play, the stadium would go mad, and this guy's coming to our house.
Yeah, no, they'll be aware of it.
Big screen.
Absolutely no doubt about it.
15 minutes in, John Mitchell's head.
They'll be
boring
very,
as to shit.
That's
what I would do if I was in control of the big screen this weekend.
They'll be very, very aware of it. When I say they won't put a huge focus on it. They'll try not let it distract them, but they'll be very conscious of it. And if Ireland beat England on Saturday, will they have a bit of...
Jacob Stockdale underneath his try when he scores, does it over the head and there's a poo emoji.
Yeah.
Straight over to John Mitchell.
But look, it's just part and parcel of... What I think they're trying to do is they're trying to rattle Ireland a little bit here and create a little bit of uncertainty, and maybe these comments will kind of think, oh God, Ireland need to play a bit more, and will the players actually... Will they slow the game down? Will they control the tempo of it? Because Ireland are very good at that. Now, there is a slight argument to say that at times we have been a little bit boring. We've been structured, but it's been very effective when you think of what we've won in the last number of years. So England, of all teams, are not this expansive side who throw the ball around, and they haven't been under Eddie Jones. They've been attritional. He's relied on trying to beat teams up, kick a lot, smother teams, and obviously if there's opportunities, then the individual talent kicks in, and they have a fair bit of pace and power in the back line, but they don't throw the ball around willy-nilly, and haven't done under Eddie Jones.
Like you say, it's not going to get to Joe Schmidt. I often wonder if these comments are never directed towards Joe Schmidt, but towards the players as individuals, because Eddie Jones made a comment as well a couple of weeks ago about Ireland being an extremely well-coached side, and it's always about Ireland being well-coached, never any credit for actually there's some individual brilliance in this squad. Yeah,
that's it, and I think it does give a little bit of motivation. If I was one of the players there, I'd want to prove them wrong. You don't publicly speak about that, but you've got to try and not let it distract you either, and stick to what they've done really well. Their preparation has been a little bit, for all the sides, it's a little bit shorter in this window because they've only 2 weeks to prepare. England are still out in Portugal. They put a video up online of the winger catching the ball with one of the coaches kind of waving one of those kind of floatable things that you do, and the snakes that you bring in the pool, those inflatable things that you shake, waving that in front of a player. I thought it was a bit condescending. Was it kind of aimed at, a little bit insulting towards Ireland on Saturday? Why did they put that stuff up there?
So what was the point of it? The
point of it was it aimed at Ireland? Oh, we're going to face a load of kicks again in Ireland on Saturday, and it's going to be typical Ireland, and they trained with kind of smooth balls with soap on them, the players, and they're releasing kind of these statements and letting this stuff out. It's a psychological thing as well,
Would you say we're in their heads a little bit?
Absolutely.
Like if you're Joe Schmidt looking at that, you're going, well, our job here is done. Let's start planning for the next week here and take a little bit of the focus off this, because
there's no planning for next week. They've got to stay on cue.
Whatever we do, don't talk about any of this stuff. Don't engage with it. Don't because it's a really badly run war of, we're not talking about the Russian version of the CIA here. We're not talking about the CIA here. We're talking about like a bunch of chumps sitting in Twickenham going, how can we upset the Irish? Let's do some videos. Like, it's schoolboy stuff.
I don't think it was directly aimed, but it was. They didn't show much footage of their training camp in Portugal, bar this scenario where one guy's waving one of these rubber inflatables or those snakes at the wingers catching the ball, trying to distract them. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Look, I think aside from any of the mind games, Ireland are a side that I think they fear. They definitely fear Ireland.
We killed them last year.
We did, yeah, but to be fair, I'm quite nervous about this English side because I think he's close to a full deck. A lot of really good players, a lot of power, and when Billy Vunipola plays, and they've missed him, there's absolutely no doubt about that.
He's a world-class player.
They have a lot of power and pace.
We've got the video of this now. I think we can show this. So this is inbound high ball practice ahead of Ireland versus England. #wear the rose. It's George Ford kicking the ball, and then.
Is that supposed to be Jacob Stockdale, the inflatable thing? Or who's it?
It's just a bit of distraction. I think the crowd are obviously going to be screeching and roaring and stuff, but to be fair, they're not the most difficult kicks. They're kind of landing a little bit short there. I would be practicing more having a contestable runner come right up into their face rather than shaking the, what do you call those things?
Floats?
Yeah. I'd have a player right up in front, or maybe have a couple of players running around him, distracting him, or screaming at them. But look, it was kind of it's a bit ironic the way they posted that video, wasn't it? And kicking practice.
We're in their
catching
heads.
practice.
It's great.
A little bit, but look, yeah, that's it.
We just better win now.
Yeah, that's it. It's going to be tough though. It's going to be tricky.
So your fear is that their power will be of such magnitude that they might be able to open holes and cause damage in our defence.
Well, they're a very physical, big side, so...
are we not though as well?
Yeah, we are. I think they may have a little bit more... it'll be interesting to see what the weights of the packs were. But look, when you look at James Ryan, Toner, Furlong, Keane Healy, we've a lot of power. Stander, will Sean O'Brien play? Mahoney. There's a lot of big players there, and I think they will, they'll try and come and rattle Ireland a bit. I think that's their only chance.
Pool noodles, Tommy, were live.
Pool noodles.
Yeah.
Courtney Laws has been showing off his new muscle, says he's eaten a lot of food, put on an extra stone of weight in terms of muscle only. Is that going to be one of the areas they look to exploit? Just get off the back row, get off the pack and just hit Johnny Sexton, hit Conor Murray potentially?
For sure. If I was playing against Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton, I'd try and target him, and that's... They understand that, they're used to that. It's up to the rest of the Irish pack to try and protect him because they're so influential. But, I don't think Ireland are going to get distracted. They know it's going to be physical. When you play any English side, they're physical, they're traditionally big, and he'll pick a big pack. He may play Courtney Laws at 6 if Brad Shields doesn't make it. But Tom Curry, he'll probably start at 7. And, they've a lot of power, they've a lot of pace. And that's what they're going to try and do. Obviously, they've got to try and play rugby as well and look for holes in an Irish side that are full of confidence and full of self-belief. So it's...
It seems that was a much bigger talking point. Obviously, you mentioned about the Eddie Jones comments about Sexton's well-being a couple of years ago. Has that changed? Have Ireland been doing something different over the past 2 seasons to protect Johnny Sexton a bit more?
Not necessarily. I think sometimes with injuries and bangs and knocks like that, you can be just a little bit unlucky. I think he's probably a little bit more sensible in the way he tackles, the way he goes. He used to go probably head first into tackles and stay very upright. I haven't noticed him doing that in a while, I think. But that 10-12 channel is an area where you want to protect for any players. You want to try and protect your 10. I think Henshaw and Aki have done a really good job in protecting whoever's played 10 there, and the back row's off the line out. So that's really important. And
in that context, right, and what we're listening to, is there a possibility that he's thinking of playing Henshaw at 15? Because Henshaw played 15 during the training week this week in Portugal, where O'Connor reported that in the Indo today, while obviously Carney was getting more game time. Is there any possibility that he's just going to give Carney another week to get back and that he might start Henshaw at 15?
I think he might start. He's definitely an option. He's played 15 before, and to have Henshaw, Aki and Ringrose on the same team at one time, they're serious players, aren't they?
Yeah.
Serious ability to change games and to be very physical and top quality players. But I think what Rob Kearney brings is that experience, and he has kind of stepped up before when he hasn't played many games, like a few of the other players, Cian Healy, Sean O'Brien have done it. So I would suspect that he'll go with Rob Kearney.
Right.
And that obviously because Kearney wasn't there, he may feature as a fullback at a latter stage, or an option as a fullback, or even come off the bench. So if Henshaw doesn't start this week, if he went for Aki and Ringrose in the centre, and Rob Kearney's playing fullback, where do you leave Henshaw out at 23? I think you can't afford to leave him out at 23, but you'd sacrifice Jordan Larmour then in that case,
Right.
So it's an interesting one. There's so many quality players.
Yeah, because you wouldn't have any qualms about Henshaw. If Henshaw, right, I think he loves Henshaw so much that he's never going to put him on the bench. But if he wants Aki in the team, can't have them both and Ringrose, right? So if there's an injury to one of the wingers, you wouldn't feel bad about Robbie Henshaw coming on the wing, would you?
You put Ringrose out there. I think he's played a lot more on the wing before, and you'd put the two of them in the centre.
Right.
In some ways, you'd love to see Henshaw and Aki going up against Tuolangi and Theo, but then you're risking that bit of flair and that X factor that Ringrose has, and his form has been so good this year, and defensively he's very strong as well. So I think you have to start Ringrose. And it was interesting, I listened to Dricko a few weeks ago where he was saying, Aki has been so good, it's very hard to leave him out of the team. You nearly have that argument with Henshaw as well.
Yeah.
His performances have been such of a high standard for whatever length of time he's played for Ireland now, a couple of years. And I think it may come to that stage where you have the three of them on the field.
At fullback.
He could play fullback, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and because they're all fit, like fully fit, it's not that Kearney isn't fit because he obviously played last week, but not quite at the match fitness that the other three are at the moment.
Yeah, and I think he's definitely under that little bit of a squeeze again, like he was 2 years ago when Ireland beat New Zealand.
Yeah, he responded pretty well at that point.
So he's going to respond again as well. And you got to back the guy, I think, because he's pretty strong and resilient. But it's good I just think there's so many players on that Irish team now that they're under pressure. everywhere, right across the board. Can you imagine a back row situation where you played Sean O'Brien at the weekend? Would it be fair and right to leave out Van der Fleer for what he's done in November? And then what Dan Levy did last year? They all have their own arguments, the way Jordy Murphy's been going as well with Ulster. So there's going to be a lot of good players. If Ty Byrne was fit, there's arguments to start him or at least have him on the bench. Then the way Henderson has responded, it just goes on and on and on. And people like me who've got to pick the team and maybe speculate what's the team going to be on Saturday, you feel like you're insulting players because it's so difficult to kind of split who should you start, who shouldn't you start, who would you go for this game. And that's a great position for Joe Schmidt to be in, to have that kind of depth right across the board.
Are you starting Van der Fleer at 7?
Jesus. I keep going back to Sean O'Brien and what he's done before, and if he's trained well in the last 2 weeks, I think getting him into the team is just, he offers that experience. And then you're taking Van der Fleer out, his chop tackle ability, his pace to the breakdown. So I would start Van der Fleer at 7 and have Sean O'Brien on the bench.
That's really the only other, like, it's, of course our depth is brilliant, but it seems that midfield to a certain extent, full-back and 7 are the only kind of debates we can have. Everything else picks itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I think Healy, Best, Furlong, Ryan, Toner, O'Mahony, Stander, Van der Fleer, Murray, Sexton. I went for Raki, Ringrose, Stockdale, Earls and Carney, with Henshaw off the bench.
Good team.
It's a serious team.
With Henshaw and O'Brien
Sean O'Brien on the bench. Henderson is going to be out.
So Quinn Rew's on the bench?
It's Quinn Rew or
Delan maybe?
Delan maybe, yeah. So it's a shame for Henderson. It's also a shame for Ty Byrne because he could have been involved for this game as well.
Yeah, this was Ty Byrne's chance, I think, to start coming on in those games and winning stuff and being a closer for the team, to nail yourself on as the sub, and maybe the back row sub. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's such a competitive situation at the moment. But so if you are Ireland and you see how the wind is blowing for England, big guy, big guy, big guy, big guy, big guy, big guy, how do you beat that? What's your game plan? What do you do to change?
They don't change too much, I think, because they've played a lot of big physical sides in the last number of years and coped well with them. Tactically, they've got to play in the right areas against England, because if you're playing against a side who undoubtedly will try and stop you and put pressure on you, you don't want to make mistakes in your own half of the field. And so I think tactically, and they did that superbly in Twickenham last year, where some of the kicks, they isolated their back three and it led to the first try. That brilliant kick from Sexton. A little bit of space in behind where Stockdale got that try as well. So I think stopping it won't be an issue for them. I think if they can build tempo and pace into their own game, that's how you beat England. That's how you wear them out a little bit. So they've, at home, and the form of a lot of these players in the Champions Cup, you would imagine they're well capable of doing that. If
England, though, do get ahead of momentum up, like, how do you interrupt that? What?
You've got to stay patient and not panic, because I think particularly at home, there's extra pressure on Ireland being the Grand Slam champions as well. And maybe that's what Eddie Jones and John Mitchell are doing. They're deflecting a little bit and they're saying, look, they bore us, they kick a lot. But they're a great side and they're well coached and well organised and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're trying to just rattle them a little bit and throw this stuff out there. But with that added pressure, I think it can sometimes affect performance. But there's so much experience in this Irish team. They'll know what they'll have to do, and they'll know the role inside out as well in their preparation under Joe Schmidt and the rest of the coaches.
There was one other thing I wanted to ask about, how quickly or otherwise teams get into the Six Nations. There's been Six Nations openers where the games have been wild and chaotic. You think back to the Wales game a couple years back.
Wales-Scotland.
Yeah, there's been other Six Nations openers where
drab affairs where
teams play badly, it's freezing.
Last year.
What happened last
Ireland
year?
and Paris last year, like they probably underperformed, or did France overperform actually to what we were giving them credit for that week? Like I would definitely say that Ireland started the Six Nations slowly last year, and it was by the end, it was by Twickenham that they were really firing.
They were humming, yeah, and that can happen. It can happen to any of the sides because of lack of preparation and a bit of cohesion and stuff like that. You think Ireland are probably best placed, given that there's a core group of them have played, the core group of Leinster players who play regularly together. Than some of the other nations. Scotland, sometimes they have a lot of Glasgow players on the team, but historically it's hard to get up to speed really, and sometimes you're not showing your hand early on. So I'll take a boring win against England on Saturday, a 9-3 win or a 12-6 win. It doesn't matter. Ireland have to just win this game, figure out, and sometimes it is cup rugby, and that's why I was kind of baffled with Eddie Jones. He didn't get his stats right when he went on about that stuff before the kicking. In fact, England kicked the ball more than Ireland in that Six Nations. So it's just about getting a win for Ireland on Saturday.
Their last win at the Aviva was 12-6 in 2013. In 2015 at the Aviva, we beat them 19-9. In 2017, it was 13-9. So, again, close.
They're close, yeah. And they're a good side, and they're a side well capable of winning this championship or winning and competing at a World Cup as well. So, like I said last week, we shouldn't underestimate them in any way. We're kind of dissecting some of the comments that are being said here, but make no mistake, there'll be a good England side, a very, very good England side. Tuolangi can be, he hasn't been for a while, but can be an incredible rugby player if he's fit, well and healthy.
Yeah. And
he can offer them so much more than they've had, maybe. Henry Slade is a really silky, skillful player as well. They have a lot of power and pace in their backline. And I think when they've beaten us before, we've actually struggled a little bit with their size and their power in their backline when they get on the front foot on occasions.
So what do you do when that's happening?
You try and hold on to the ball and not kick loosely to them. That's why the kicking game, if it's done accurately, can be a fantastic weapon. But I think, look, we have Stockdale. He's come into the team in the last couple of years. He's 6'3", really, really big, powerful
big
man.
Lad, yeah.
We've got a lot of power and strength in the centre now with Henshaw, Aki, back up with Chris Farrell. Will Allison's a big man. Ringroad is really after filling out and becoming really, really strong. And I think Keith Earls was never the biggest player in the world, but I think he's got a lot more powerful.
Yeah.
And he's shown that he can, really cope with that physical side of the game as well. So there's a lot of strength in Ireland now as well.
Stuart Hogg's in the papers today saying that he thinks Scotland can win this whole thing. They've got Italy at home and then Ireland at home next week. So it's a perfect start.
I think the crucial game for them is if they can beat Ireland. They're away in Twickenham and they're away in Paris. They're the hard ones. You want to win your home games, and Ireland is crucial for Scotland, but they're very well capable. I looked through the teams there over the weekend and the fixtures, and you're going, Jesus, everyone has a chance here.
How important is it for us in that Scotland game to lay down a marker for what's coming? Or does it bear any relationship between the game that's going to happen in the World Cup? Like if we hammer them in Scotland now, are they shell-shocked by the time the World Cup comes around? If we lose that game, are we suddenly at risk of losing the game? We totally are. If Scotland beat us in Scotland, they could easily beat us in Japan.
Yeah, it'll be massive psychologically, I think, and it does have an effect. If Scotland beat Ireland again, that they go, well, 2 years in the trot, or 2 years in Murrayfield we've beaten them, and it would have an effect psychologically for their preparation going to the World Cup, and it would probably dent Ireland a little bit. If Scotland get another win, they can say, well, we have their measure. We know how to rattle them a little bit. But the flip side of it, I think if Ireland win, it still makes Scotland a really, really dangerous threat at the World Cup. It'll be a different game. So bar Ireland win by 20, 30 points, which won't happen, or Scotland beat him, they're the two scenarios that psychologically will have an effect.
Okay, I'm going to ask you briefly about Wales and France in a minute, but here's Keith Earls chatting to the media this week, talking about the form of Stockdale and how Joe Schmidt will approach Saturday's game. Have a look.
Yeah, and he's doing it with Ulster as well, so it's great to see him carry on that form. you know, that it wasn't just a kind of, was a first season thing. I know people talk about second season syndrome when everyone gets to know you and teams start to mark up on you, but he seems to keep doing it, so it's great to see him in the form he's in. Especially he had a bit of an injury start to the season and he's just exploded again, so it's great to see that.
And Keith, it's Joe last year, obviously in charge of Ireland. We know how determined and driven he is to win games. Do you get a sense that he's even more so this year because it is his last year in charge?
Yeah, no, Joe's always been driven to win a game. I don't even think Joe's thinking about past England, never mind what he's going to do after he's with us. Like he's always driven, and he's driven a lot of us to win every game as well and be the best we can be, so it's no different on Joe's side either.
Yeah, we haven't had a going away party for Joe Schmidt yet, even though he's gone away. It's like, this is the last time he's ever going to play England at the Aviva.
Yeah, it's a strange one. He'd be missed, but yeah, like Keith said, I think you're judged on what happens now as well, unfairly sometimes, and he'll really want to start well on Saturday. Just get a win on the board. It's a really tough start for Ireland. England at home.
Yeah.
You can't ease your way into this tournament. And Scotland,
Italy first game.
Scotland away then as well. So it's a really tough start for him.
People find it very hard to separate France and Wales. That game's a pick 'em at the moment. What's your take on that?
It depends what France turns up. You know, they have undoubted talent. They'll have some new players in the squad. A lot of Toulouse players who've performed really well this year in Europe, although they got smothered in Dublin when they came here. Dupont is a great player. He's one I'm looking forward to seeing. Intamac, will he play in the 12 role? I thought he was until I saw him in Dublin. And
not quite at his dad's level yet, is he?
He's not the biggest man. He's a real playmaker, but he can, you know, if they get enough of ball, they can be very, very dangerous. So it depends what France are there. Brunel is under pressure. They lost against Fiji in November. I think if he's a bad Six Nations, he could
be gone.
They could oust him, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see. Wales, on the other hand, have kind of kept a low profile. I don't know, do you make a conscious decision to do that? But I
Gallen
think
has to make
they had a really good
decision.
November. They're on a really good winning streak, and he'll be confident of them doing well, and they believe and they perform well in the Six Nations. So they're a serious threat. But if they want to win the championship, I think they've got to win in Paris on Friday night, Wales, and then they've England at home. They've England and Ireland in Cardiff, so
they love those years.
They'll sniff one for sure.
All right, good stuff, Alan. Thanks for that. We'll talk a bit more about that rugby across the course of the week, obviously.